Okay, so let's get started. The first thing we really need to do, we need to determine whether our musical keyboard is connected via MIDI directly to our PC or laptop, like in my case, or if your musical keyboard only supports the 5-pin DIN MIDI cable, you might be able to use external MIDI 5-pin DIN to USB converters, or like in many audio interfaces, they may come with MIDI in and out that's supported directly. So that's what you need to set up first, making sure that your PC or laptop can actually recognize and see your musical keyboard. So you need to work that out depending on which keyboard you have. Now, I would assume that in the last 10 years, pretty much every musical keyboard, every brand, even the cheapest brands, the cheapest keyboards do have MIDI interface. Whether USB or 5-pin DIN, they should have it. So that's the first thing you need to determine and make sure you have that set up correctly. In my case, I do have my KORG MIDI driver installed, so it should recognize it pretty much straight away, and my MIDI cables all plugged in. The next thing we need to do is start up our Studio One Prime. Here we go. It's now that it's loaded. First thing, as I mentioned, we need to do is configure our audio and external devices. You would have seen in my previous videos how it's all set up. So we have our Behringer USB audio selected, which is fine. And then to get our MIDI communication happening, we need to click on external devices. Obviously, it won't automatically recognize. We need to add a new one. So we click Add. New keyboard means it's a keyboard device, so a generic MIDI keyboards that you can get, like the one you might have seen in my other videos, the Roland A49, which is just whatever keys you play on that keyboard, MIDI signal gets sent through. And surface controls are the ones that you can use to control track, volumes or synthesizer settings, and pretty much every setting in the Studio One VST plugins and so on. But what we want to do is a new instrument. So let's give it a name, KORG, so we can identify it. And this musical instrument is something that normally musical keyboards and outboard sound modules and samplers are used for. An explanation is already given there. So we want to receive from my PA3X keyboard. This is appearing because I have my PA3X driver installed. And if you are using a different manufacturer, different keyboard, then obviously that will appear under different name. So we're selecting receive from the keyboard, even though we're not really going to receive anything from the keyboard at this stage. And we want to send all the MIDI sound notes to PA3X as a sound module on every channel. I usually select the MIDI clock so that everything is synchronized, start and stop signals as well, and time code. So we click OK. So now we have my PA3X connected. So now Studio One should be able to talk to my KORG PA3X keyboard, receive any notes played on the keyboard, as well as send any MIDI notes to the keyboard as a sound module. And depending again on your keyboard manufacturer and setting, you may need to set the MIDI settings on your musical keyboard correctly to receive MIDI notes from its USB input. and so on. So that is beyond the scope of this video. So I've got all that ready set up, so we click OK. So next, now that we've got everything organized, is create a new song. Let's call this song Studio 9 Demo 1, because that's what I called my MIDI song there. Just 24 bits, 5 minutes is plenty. I believe it's 120 bits per minute, but we can always adjust it because it's MIDI. See how it feels. And yeah, pretty much done. So we click OK. So now that we've got this organized, the next thing we need to do is copy the MIDI file to appropriate folder. It's still on my USB stick. So let's just open up my USB stick. That's the demo song we want. So I'm just gonna, just for demonstrative purposes, I'm just gonna use the right click and copy, but obviously you can use Control-C for copy. And we want to copy it where we want the rest of the project files to be, under Studio 1, under Songs, Studio 9 Demo. Now this folder, Studio 9 Demo, will only be created when you actually first create the project song in Studio 1. So that's why I waited before I copied it. So now we can paste it here. So now we have all of the project files, including the MIDI, is within one folder called Studio 9 Demo. So the next thing we need to do is go into Files. We are also able to go into Studio 1, Songs, then Studio 1 Demo, and the MIDI. Very easy. The next step is the easiest step. Just drag and drop. Do you want to load general MIDI sounds for this file? Not at this stage. No, because we want all the sound to come from the musical keyboard itself. So we say no. So we'll import, and we should have all of the channels which have any MIDI notes loaded automatically into multiple channels. So we have channel 5, channel 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15 and 16. So all of those MIDI channels are now loaded. We know they are MIDI channels because of the symbol right here. It's an instrument. So Studio 1 automatically recognized and separated all of the channels, because MIDI can support up to 16 channels, separated them into their own individual tracks. So that made it really, really easy. So you just close that browser now. We're all done. Now, so that we know what channels each of these MIDI channels in our Studio 1 needs to be directed to, I usually try to make that sort of medium so we can actually see. We need to set the output MIDI channels that we want each of these instruments to go to for our musical keyboard. So we select PA3X, and we want this channel 5 because it originally recorded as channel 5. So that's what we're sending it to. And then we do the same for each one of the other channels. It goes to 7. There's none, no 8, so that goes to 9. And we just scroll. So I have gone ahead and actually set all of my MIDI output channels to my PA3X channel 16, 15, 14, and so on. So now that we have all of these MIDI notes directed to this external MIDI device, to this channel of that device, and so on, when we actually click the play button, we should be able to hear something now. Let's give it a try. Yes, we can certainly hear it. Okay, how cool was that? So now we have our MIDI channels all set up correctly. So let's just make that small again so we can see the whole of the song. And the whole song goes about, I think, about 80, nearly 90 bars. So that's the song we are going to play around with. So we have up to 16 different instruments being played within this song. So now that we have control of each of the instruments, we can simply select and play each instrument by itself. Let's say we want to just listen to the drums, so we can solo that one out and click play. So all we're hearing is drums. And if you want to do, let's say, the bass guitar, which I know is on channel 9. So that's the bass being played. So you can see where I'm going with this. And that's what I explained previously, that we are able to select different instruments. And then while it's playing, we can record the audio sound for it. And then apply any effect that we want later on, anything else that we want to add. So you can listen and say, okay, that's this sound and that sound. And we can rename all of these channel CH10, CH13, 14. So that's another electric guitar. You can call it electric guitar. And I can leave that up to you. So that's the whole idea. Now that we can record each track separately. There's an organ there playing. So once we enable the whole lot, you can listen to the whole thing. So now that you know how it's all done and what it's all about, we can go ahead and record each instrument. But before I finish this video session, I wanted to add something extra, a better control of our drums. At the moment, the drums, if we just listen to the drums, it's pretty much all of the drums into one track that we are listening. But to be able to have even more control on the drums, like separating our hi-hats and our kick drum and the snares and the toms all separate into separate tracks. So how can we do that? In Studio One, it is unbelievably easy to even separate each one of those drum sets separate part into its own individual track, just like we have it here now. And to be able to do that, we select the MIDI object, this one here, we right click on it, instrument parts, explode pitches to track. Because in MIDI, even with drums, each one of those notes are on a separate key on the keyboard. Let's have a quick look before we do that one. So if we double click, we can see all the MIDI notes. Let's just zoom in. Should be able to just zoom in. So as you can see, our MIDI notes are on the keyboard. So what if we actually explode each one of these sounds that we are being used? I think it's this one here. For that, see, or this one, oops, and or this one. So we can explode them to its own track. So now we would have control of each part of the drum. I'll show you what I mean. Let's close this one. Let's go back here again. Right click, instrument parts, explode pitches to tracks. Now this in Studio One will explode the channel 10 track into as many other tracks that there are used, or MIDI sort of notes used on those tracks. Here we go. There we are. So if we look at it, now channel 10 has exploded into all of the others. I'll show you what I mean. All of these ones are the notes for, as you can hear there. Actually, hang on. Here we go. So you should be able to so you can see now all we're hearing is the kick drum, and that's fantastic because in a better control, especially with the drums, we want the kick drum, the snare, the hi-hats, and the cymbals to have separate tracks for each, so that we can actually control the individual volumes of each one of those parts of the drum instrument. That way we are not only able to control their own volume, but down here you can see velocity. We are able to minorly adjust the velocity levels, which will give the drums even more human feel by varying the loudness of each time that the instrument is kicked. Because remember, what we're hearing is the keyboard making the musical keyboard making the sound, and it's usually will be looped the same over and over and again. But a live drummer will never be able to hit the drum the same pressure to create the same loudness every single time. It'd be very close for good drummers, but they will still have that variation, and so that what will give us the ability to simulate that variation in the pressure that a real drummer would give. So our music will sound even more lively than it is. And that goes at the same time to any of our other instruments, so we can ever slightly vary it from its different parts, different bars, to give a feel more dynamic into our song. In our next part, part 3, we will be going and concentrating on recording the drums track for the song, and we'll be able to select whichever MIDI channels of the drums to play, and we will be doing multiple channels of the drums. So we will have our kick drum, our snare, our hi-hats and toms, and as well as any of the other cymbals into separate tracks, so we have full control of the whole drum. Well, I hope the video was informative enough for you, and if you liked it, give me the thumbs up so I know that it was helpful for you, so that I can follow up with the next part of the series. And in the meantime, if you have any comments regarding this part video, the demonstration, you can write below, and as always, more than happy to answer them for you as much as I can. And if you haven't subscribed, it's a really good time to subscribe to my channel now, so that as soon as I release my next video of this part of the series, you are notified and you can come and grab the next video. And if you haven't visited my website, it's recordingstudio9.com. You can do that, because very soon I will be uploading the MIDI file that I've just demonstrated loading into PreSonus Studio One on my website, so you'll be able to download that. And if you like, you know, it's a good idea to actually create your own MIDI file with your own keyboard, with your own arrangement. But if you don't have that option, then you're most welcome to download my MIDI file. And until next time, thanks for watching, and have a great time making music. Till next time, cheerio, bye bye.